The days following Ethan Carter's disappearance were filled with a mix of grief and determination. People across the globe had watched as the mysterious alien ship appeared, fired its beam, and took one of their own. It wasn't just Ethan, who was lost. It felt like humanity's innocence had been stolen too. Earth had always been cautious about its place in the galaxy, but now it was clear that caution wouldn't be enough. The world needed to act, and fast. Rachel Monroe stood at the center of this growing movement. She was no stranger to politics, having spent years fighting for justice in her home state. But nothing could have prepared her for what came next. As news of Ethan's death spread, Rachel became a voice of strength and unity. Her speeches, broadcast live on television and online, reached millions. In every word she spoke, there was a sense of urgency, a call for humanity to rise above its divisions. "They took one life," Rachel said during a press conference in Washington, D.C., her voice steady but powerful. "But they have awakened billions. We cannot let fear divide us. We must stand together, not just as Americans, not just as nations, but as one human race." Her words struck a chord. For the first time in history, countries around the world began working as one. Governments set aside old rivalries and shared resources. Scientists from different nations collaborated in labs, pooling their knowledge to understand the technology behind the alien attack. Military leaders coordinated strategies, preparing for the possibility of another assault. Even ordinary citizens pitched in, donating money, volunteering their skills, or simply spreading awareness. Among these volunteers was Daniel Harper, an engineer from Texas. Daniel had always been fascinated by space, building model rockets as a child and dreaming of exploring the stars. Now he found himself at the heart of humanity's response to the alien threat. At a research facility in California, Daniel worked alongside some of the brightest minds on Earth. Together, they studied fragments of alien technology recovered from past encounters, trying to reverse engineer it into something useful. Daniel's focus was on defense systems. He believed Earth needed better ways to protect itself, starting with upgrading its outdated military ships. Using what little information they had about the attackers' weapons, Daniel designed shields capable of withstanding energy beams like the one that had taken Ethan. His ideas were bold, even risky, but they worked. Within weeks, his designs were being tested, and they passed with flying colors. While Daniel focused on technology, others worked on building a united front. One of these people was Emily Dawson, a schoolteacher from Chicago. Before the attack, Emily had lived a quiet life, teaching science to middle school students and spending weekends hiking in the nearby woods. But when news of Ethan's death broke, something inside her shifted. She couldn't shake the image of the young astrophysicist disappearing into thin air. It reminded her of her brother, who had died years earlier during a smaller alien skirmish. Determined to honor both men, Emily decided to join the fight. At first, Emily didn't know how she could help. She wasn't a scientist or a soldier. She was just a teacher. But then she heard about the Earth Defense Initiative, EDI, a new coalition formed to protect humanity from further attacks. The EDI was recruiting pilots, mechanics, medics, and anyone else willing to serve. Emily signed up immediately, trading her classroom for a pilot's seat. Though she had never flown anything more complex than a small plane, she threw herself into training with unmatched determination. Emily's journey wasn't easy. Flying a spacecraft required skills far beyond those needed for airplanes. The controls were complicated, the maneuvers difficult, and the stakes incredibly high. But Emily refused to give up. Every night after hours of practice, she studied flight manuals and watched videos of experienced pilots. Slowly but surely, she improved. By the time her training ended, Emily was one of the top recruits in her class. As Earth prepared for the unknown, its efforts caught the attention of other civilizations. Across the galaxy, species both friendly and hostile watched closely. Some admired humanity's resilience, seeing echoes of their own struggles in Earth's response. Others dismissed it as foolishness, convinced that such a divided species would collapse under pressure. Few believed Earth could mount a credible defense, let alone strike back. One of these skeptics was Zinara, a diplomat from the Galactic Council. The Council was an alliance of advanced civilizations that governed much of the galaxy. While Earth had applied for membership several times, its applications had always been rejected due to its lack of technological advancement and political instability. Zainara, tasked with monitoring Earth's activities, expected little more than chaos in response to the attack. "They are primitives," Zainara told her colleagues during a meeting aboard the Council's flagship. "Their emotions will drive them to rash decisions and they will fail. We should not waste our time worrying about them." But not everyone agreed. Another council member, a wise elder named Kale, argued that Earth's reaction deserved attention. "Do not underestimate them," Kale warned. "They may lack experience, but they possess something rare, a willingness to unite in the face of danger. That alone makes them unpredictable." Back on Earth, preparations continued at a feverish pace. Under the leadership of General Alan Brooks, a seasoned military leader known for his strategic brilliance, the EDI transformed from a loose coalition into a disciplined force. Brooks understood the importance of morale, so he made sure everyone, from engineers like Daniel to pilots like Emily, felt valued. He visited facilities, shook hands, and listened to concerns, earning the trust of those under his command. Brooks also knew that Earth's biggest challenge would be gathering intelligence. Without knowing where the attackers came from or what they wanted, planning a counterattack was nearly impossible. To solve this problem, he turned to Rachel Monroe. Her ability to inspire people made her the perfect candidate to lead diplomatic efforts. If any alien species had information about the attackers, Rachel would find it. Rachel embraced the role wholeheartedly. Traveling to embassies and outposts across the galaxy, she met with representatives from dozens of civilizations. Some were friendly, offering what little they knew about the mysterious ship. Others were less cooperative, refusing to share information unless Earth promised something in return. Through it all, Rachel remained patient and persistent, determined to uncover the truth. Her persistence paid off when she met a trader named Lyra, a wiry alien with glowing green eyes and a sharp mind. Lyra claimed to have seen ships like the one that attacked Earth near a distant star system called Zyran 7. According to her, the system was home to a reclusive species known for their aggression and secrecy. Though Lyra couldn't confirm whether they were responsible for Ethan's death, her information gave Earth its first real lead. With this clue in hand, Earth began finalizing its plans. Ships were upgraded with Daniel's shield designs, weapons were calibrated for maximum efficiency, and pilots like Emily underwent intense simulations to prepare for combat. Meanwhile, Rachel worked tirelessly to rally support from sympathetic alien species. Though few were willing to join Earth's cause directly, many offered supplies, intelligence, or safe passage through their territories. As the fleet prepared to launch, tensions ran high. Everyone knew the risks involved. The attackers were clearly advanced, possibly centuries ahead of Earth in terms of technology. A single mistake could mean disaster. Yet despite the odds, no one backed down. Pilots volunteered for dangerous missions, engineers worked around the clock to finish upgrades, and soldiers trained harder than ever before. On the eve of departure, Emily sat alone in her quarters, staring at a photo of her brother. She thought about Ethan too, wondering what kind of person he had been. Both men had dreamed of reaching the stars, only to have their lives cut short by violence. Emily clenched her fists, vowing silently to make their sacrifices count. The next morning, the fleet gathered in orbit above Earth. Dozens of ships, each bearing the emblem of the EDI, formed a massive armada. From the bridge of the flagship, General Brooks addressed the crew. His voice was calm but firm as he spoke. "Today we take our first step toward securing humanity's future," Brooks said. "We go not as individuals, not as nations, but as one united force. Remember why we're here: to protect our home, to honor those we've lost, and to show the galaxy that Earth will not be pushed around." Cheers erupted throughout the fleet. Soldiers saluted, engineers nodded in approval, and pilots like Emily tightened their grips on the controls. For the first time in history, Earth was ready to fight back. As the ships accelerated into the void of space, leaving Earth behind, the galaxy watched in stunned silence. No one had expected humanity to respond so boldly. Some feared what might happen next, while others hoped Earth's courage would inspire change. Whatever the outcome, one thing was certain. The days of underestimating Earth were over, and so, with hope in their hearts and fire in their veins, humanity embarked on its greatest adventure yet, an adventure that would test its strength, its unity, and its will to survive. The journey to Ziran 7 was long and dangerous. The fleet moved cautiously through the vast emptiness of space, its ships forming a tight formation as they navigated treacherous asteroid fields and avoided patrols from other hostile alien factions. Every moment brought new challenges, but the crew remained focused. They knew what was at stake. This wasn't just about revenge for Ethan Carter's death. It was about protecting Earth and proving that humanity could stand up to even the most advanced threats. Emily Dawson sat in the cockpit of her fighter, staring out at the endless blackness dotted with stars. She had trained hard for this mission, but nothing could fully prepare her for the reality of war. Her hands gripped the controls tightly as she thought about her brother and Ethan. Their faces lingered in her mind, reminders of why she was here. Emily whispered a silent promise to herself. No matter what happened, she wouldn't let them down. Back on the flagship, General Alan Brooks studied the star charts with intense focus. He had spent years leading soldiers into battle, but this mission felt different. It wasn't just about winning. It was about survival. If they failed, Earth would be left vulnerable, and the galaxy would see humanity as weak. Brooks couldn't let that happen. He leaned over the holographic map, pointing out key areas to his officers. "We'll need to approach Ziran 7 carefully," he said, his voice steady. "Their orbital defenses are strong. If we rush in without a plan, we'll be torn apart." Daniel, Harper, stood nearby, listening intently. His shield designs were already installed on the fleet's ships, but he still worried. What if the shields weren't enough? What if the attackers had technology far beyond anything they'd anticipated? Daniel shook off the doubts. There was no turning back now. All he could do was trust his work and hope it held up under pressure. As the fleet drew closer to Ziran 7, the tension aboard the ships grew thicker. Pilots like Emily ran final checks on their fighters, while engineers double-checked every system. Soldiers reviewed tactics, practicing maneuvers over and over until they became second nature. Even the cooks and medics played their parts, ensuring everyone was fed and rested. Every person aboard the fleet, no matter their role, understood how important this mission was. When they finally arrived at Ziran 7, the sight was overwhelming. The planet itself was barren and lifeless, its surface scarred by craters and covered in ash. But surrounding it was a massive network of orbital fortresses, massive structures bristling with weapons. Energy cannons glowed ominously, ready to fire at any intruder. Smaller patrol ships darted between the fortresses, scanning for threats. Brooks ordered the fleet to hold position just outside the range of the enemy's weapons. From there, they could observe and plan their next move. Rachel Monroe, who had joined the mission to help negotiate if needed, stood beside him on the bridge. She stared at the screen showing the orbital defenses, her expression grim. "They're expecting us," Rachel said quietly. "This isn't going to be easy." "It never is," Brooks replied. "But we didn't come all this way to turn back now." Daniel stepped forward, holding a tablet with his latest calculations. "Sir, I've been analyzing their defense. Patterns. There's a weak point near the southern hemisphere of the planet. If we can disable one of the fortresses there, it'll create an opening for us to slip through." Brooks nodded. "Good work, Harper. Let's make it happen." The plan was risky but straightforward. Using decoy drones designed by Daniel, the fleet would draw the enemy's attention away from the weak point. Once the defenses were distracted, a small team of fighters led by Emily would fly straight into the gap and disable the fortress's main power core. Without power, the entire structure would shut down, clearing the way for the rest of the fleet to advance. Emily felt a mix of excitement and fear as she prepared for her role in the mission. She had trained for situations like this, but knowing it was real made her heart race. As she climbed into her fighter, She took a deep breath and reminded herself of why she was here. For Ethan, for her brother, for Earth. "Ready, Dawson?" came a voice over her headset. It was Captain Lucas, the leader of her squadron. "Ready?" Emily replied, her voice steady despite the nerves bubbling inside her. The attack began with a barrage of drones launched toward the northern hemisphere of the planet. The decoys moved erratically, mimicking the movements of real ships. As expected, the enemy fell for the trick. Patrol ships scrambled to intercept the drones, while the orbital fortresses redirected their firepower to the north. The distraction worked perfectly, pulling the defenders away from the weak point. "Now!" Brooks barked over the comms. Emily's squadron surged forward, racing toward the gap in the defenses. The enemy quickly realized they'd been fooled and tried to reposition their forces. But it was too late. Emily's team was already inside the perimeter, weaving through debris and dodging laser fire as they approached the fortress. "Stay sharp!" Emily shouted to her teammates. "We're almost there!" Her fighter shuddered as enemy fire grazed its hull, but she kept going. The fortress loomed ahead, its surface covered in glowing conduits and massive turrets. Emily targeted the main power core, a pulsating orb of energy at the center of the structure, and fired her missiles. The explosion lit up the darkness, sending shockwaves rippling outward. One by one, the fortress's weapons went dark, and the structure began to collapse. "We did it!" Emily exclaimed, her voice filled with triumph. "Clear the area!" Her squadron pulled back just as the fortress erupted in a blinding flash of light. The explosion created a hole in the orbital defenses large enough for the fleet to pass through. Brooks wasted no time ordering the advance. The ships surged forward, their engines roaring as they entered the planet's atmosphere. On the ground below, the enemy mobilized its forces. Tanks rolled out onto barren plains, and squadrons of alien fighters took to the skies. The battle raged fiercely, with both sides refusing to give an inch. Human pilots clashed with alien ships in dogfights, while ground troops fought amidst the ruins of ancient cities. Explosions lit up the horizon, and the air was thick with smoke and the sound of gunfire. Emily found herself in the thick of the fighting, her fighter darting between enemy ships as she unleashed volley after volley of missiles. Her training paid off as she evaded attacks and retaliated with precision. Around her, other pilots followed her lead, working together to take down the enemy's superior numbers. Meanwhile, Daniel monitored the fleet systems from the engineering bay. His shields held firm against the relentless assault, absorbing blow after blow. Sweat dripped down his face as he worked frantically to keep everything running smoothly. When a critical system threatened to fail, he improvised a solution using spare parts and sheer determination. Rachel Monroe stayed close to Brooks, offering advice and encouragement whenever she could. Though she wasn't a soldier, her presence inspired those around her. She reminded them of why they were fighting, not just for revenge but for the future of humanity. Slowly but surely, the tide of the battle turned. The enemy's forces began to falter under the relentless pressure of the EDI fleet. Their fortresses crumbled, their ships were destroyed, and their ground troops retreated. By the time the dust settled, Earth's forces had dealt a crushing blow to the attackers, leaving their ability to wage war in ruins. Exhausted but victorious, the fleet regrouped above the planet. Emily landed her fighter on the flagship, climbing out with shaking legs. Her uniform was scorched and her face was streaked with soot, but she wore a smile of pride. Around her, other pilots and soldiers cheered, celebrating their hard-fought victory. General Brooks walked among them, patting shoulders and offering words of gratitude. "You did it," he said simply. "You showed the galaxy what humanity is made of." Rachel stood nearby, watching the celebration with tears in her eyes. She thought of Ethan and all the others who had sacrificed so much. Their deaths hadn't been in vain. Humanity had risen to the challenge, proving that it could stand shoulder to shoulder with the greatest powers in the galaxy. As the fleet prepared to return home, news of the victory spread across the galaxy. Alien species who had once dismissed Earth as insignificant now looked at it with newfound respect. Diplomats scrambled to open channels of communication, hoping to form alliances with the rising human civilization. Earth had earned its place among the stars, not through conquest but through courage and unity. And though the cost of the battle had been high, with many lives lost and ships destroyed, the survivors knew they had achieved something extraordinary. They had faced an impossible challenge and emerged stronger than ever. For the first time in history, humanity truly belonged to the galaxy, and the galaxy knew it. The victory at Zyran 7 was more than just a battle won. It was a turning point for humanity. News of Earth's triumph spread quickly, carried by signals that reached the farthest corners of the galaxy. Alien species who had once ignored or dismissed humanity now watched with a mix of awe and unease. The small divided planet they had underestimated had risen up to strike back against one of the most feared civilizations in the galaxy. For many, this revelation was both inspiring and unsettling. Back on Earth, the mood was bittersweet. While there was pride in what had been achieved, the cost of the victory weighed heavily on everyone's hearts. Memorials were erected in cities around the world to honor those who had given their lives during the mission. Pilots, soldiers, engineers, and countless others had sacrificed themselves so that humanity could take its place among the stars. Among them was Ethan Carter, whose name became a symbol of resilience and courage. His story was told again and again, how his death had sparked a movement that united billions of people across the globe. Rachel Monroe stood before a crowd gathered in Washington, D.C., her voice filled with emotion as she addressed the nation. "We showed the galaxy that we will not stand idly by while our people are harmed," she said, her words echoing through the silent crowd. "And we will continue to stand together, no matter what challenges lie ahead." Her speech resonated deeply with those listening, not just in America but around the world. People clung to her words, finding comfort in the idea that humanity's strength came from unity. It wasn't about individual nations or leaders anymore. It was about something greater, a shared purpose, a common goal. Rachel's leadership had played a crucial role in bringing people together, and she knew it was only the beginning. As the days passed, Earth began to rebuild. The scars of the battle were still fresh, but there was also hope. Engineers like Daniel Harper worked tirelessly to repair damaged ships and develop new technologies based on what they had learned during the fight. His designs for energy shields became standard equipment for all future vessels, ensuring that humanity would be better prepared for whatever came next. Daniel often stayed late in the lab, driven by the memory of the friends he had lost and the knowledge that his work could save lives in the future. Emily Dawson returned to Chicago after the mission, though she never went back to teaching full-time. Instead, she became an instructor at the EDI training facility, sharing her experiences with new recruits. Her classes were popular, not just because of her skill as a pilot, but because of the passion she brought to her lessons. She reminded her students why they were fighting, for the people they loved, for the planet they called home, and for the chance to explore the stars without fear. For many ordinary citizens, life slowly returned to normal, or at least as normal as it could be after such a monumental event. Streets once filled with protests and vigils now buzzed with conversations about the future. People talked about space exploration, colonization, and diplomacy with alien species. Schools added courses on interstellar relations, and children dreamed of becoming astronauts, diplomats, or engineers. Earth felt alive in a way it never had before, as if the entire planet had awakened to its potential. But the galaxy didn't forget what had happened either. Diplomatic envoys arrived from distant star systems, seeking alliances with Earth. Some came out of genuine admiration, eager to learn from humanity's example of unity and determination. Others had more selfish motives, hoping to gain access to Earth's rapidly advancing technology. Rachel Monroe handled these negotiations with care, always keeping Earth's best interests in mind. She knew that trust took time to build, and that not every species could be trusted. Among the visitors was Zainara, the skeptical diplomat from the Galactic Council. When she first stepped off her ship onto Earth soil, she looked around with wide eyes, clearly surprised by what she saw. Gone was the fractured, chaotic planet she had dismissed months earlier. In its place was a thriving civilization, confident and united. Sinara met with Rachel and General Brooks, her tone noticeably softer than before. "You have proven yourselves capable," Sinara admitted during their meeting. "Perhaps it is time for the Council to reconsider Earth's application for membership." Rachel smiled but remained cautious. "We appreciate your interest," she said diplomatically. "But let's be clear, Earth doesn't need permission to exist in this galaxy. We're here to stay, whether the Council approves or not." Sinara nodded, impressed by Rachel's resolve. "Understood. Still, cooperation benefits us all. Let us move forward together." While some species sought friendship, others viewed Earth's rise with suspicion. Hostile factions whispered warnings about humanity's growing power, predicting that Earth's newfound confidence would lead to conflict. But Earth's leaders were careful to avoid provoking further hostility. They focused on defense and diplomacy, making it clear that they wanted peace, but were ready to defend themselves if necessary. In the years that followed, Earth continued to grow stronger. New colonies were established on nearby planets and moons, expanding humanity's reach into the cosmos. Scientists made breakthroughs in medicine, energy production, and artificial intelligence, improving life for billions of people. Artists and writers drew inspiration from the events at Ziran 7, creating works that celebrated humanity's resilience and imagination. Yet despite all the progress, Earth never forgot where it had come from. Every year, on the anniversary of Ethan Carter's death, people paused to remember him and the others who had given their lives. Ceremonies were held in parks and public squares, with speeches, music, and moments of silence. It was a reminder that freedom and progress came at a price, and that the sacrifices of the past should never be forgotten. One evening, Emily stood on a hill overlooking Chicago, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. Beside her sat a young boy, one of her former students who had recently graduated from flight school. He looked up at her with admiration in his eyes. "Do you think we'll ever see another war like the one at Ziran 7? He asked. Emily thought for a moment before answering. "I don't know," she said honestly. "But I do know this. No matter what happens, we'll face it together. That's what makes us strong." The boy nodded, satisfied with her answer. Together they watched as the first stars appeared in the darkening sky, tiny pinpricks of light that seemed to promise endless possibilities. Far away aboard a research station orbiting Earth, Daniel Harper gazed out at the same stars. His mind was filled with ideas for new inventions, new ways to protect and explore. He smiled to himself, knowing that humanity's journey was just beginning. There were still mysteries to uncover, dangers to face, and dreams to chase. And for the first time in history, Earth was ready. Rachel Monroe sat in her office late at night reading reports from ambassadors stationed across the galaxy. Each message brought news of alliances formed, trade agreements signed, and friendships forged. She leaned back in her chair, feeling a sense of accomplishment. Humanity had come so far in such a short time, and she knew it was only the beginning. "They underestimated us," Rachel said softly to herself. "But they won't make that mistake again." Outside her window, Earth spun silently in the darkness, its oceans shimmering under the light of the moon. It was a beautiful sight, a reminder of everything worth fighting for. And as Rachel looked out at the planet she loved, she felt a deep sense of pride, not just for what humanity had achieved, but for what it could become. In the end, the story of Earth's rise was not just about battles fought or victories won. It was about the spirit of a species that refused to give up, even when faced with overwhelming odds. It was about ordinary people coming together to do extraordinary things. And it was about proving to the galaxy, and to themselves, that humanity belonged among the stars. What had started with the loss of one life had ignited a fire that burned brighter than anyone could have imagined. And as that fire lit up the cosmos, it became clear that Earth's journey was far from over. The galaxy had changed forever because of humanity's actions. And though challenges lay ahead, one thing was certain: Earth would meet them head-on, united and unafraid. Years had passed since the battle at Ziran 7, and Earth's place in the galaxy had changed forever. What had once been a quiet, overlooked planet was now a respected member of the interstellar community. Humanity's courage and unity had earned them allies, respect, and even a cautious admiration from former adversaries. But peace didn't mean the end of challenges. New threats emerged, old rivalries simmered, and Earth had to navigate a galaxy far more complex than anyone had imagined. Rachel Monroe, now one of Earth's most prominent leaders, found herself busier than ever. She spent her days meeting with ambassadors, negotiating treaties, and addressing the concerns of citizens across the globe. Her speeches continued to inspire people, but she often reminded them that their work was far from over. Victory is not the end, she would say. It's the beginning of a new responsibility. One morning, Rachel received an urgent message from General Alan Brooks. The EDI had detected unusual activity near the edge of Earth's solar system. Strange. Ships unlike anything seen before were approaching slowly but steadily. Their intentions were unclear, and their technology appeared advanced, perhaps even beyond what humanity had encountered at Xiron 7. Rachel immediately called an emergency meeting with Earth's top scientists, engineers, and military leaders. Daniel Harper was among those summoned to the conference room. By now, he had become one of Earth's leading minds in alien technology. His innovations had not only strengthened Earth's defenses, but also helped humanity understand the workings of other civilizations. As he studied the data on the mysterious ships, his brow furrowed with concern. "These readings don't match any known species," Daniel said, pointing to the holographic display. "Their energy signatures are off the charts. Whoever they are, they're hiding something." Emily Dawson sat nearby, listening intently. Since her return from Xiron 7, she had risen through the ranks of the EDI's pilot corps, earning a reputation for bravery and skill. Now, as captain of her own squadron, she felt the weight of leadership heavily on her shoulders. If these ships posed a threat, it would fall to pilots like her to defend Earth. "We need to be ready," Emily said firmly. "If they're hostile, we can't afford to hesitate." Brooks nodded in agreement. "Agreed, we'll send out reconnaissance drones to gather more information. In the meantime, we'll prepare our fleet. Harper, I want you to upgrade our weapons systems. Dawson, run simulations with your squadron. We may not know who they are yet, but we'll be ready for whatever comes." The days that followed were tense. Reconnaissance drones sent to investigate the mysterious ships returned. With fragmented data, the vessels were massive, sleek, and seemingly impervious to scans. They moved in perfect formation, exuding an aura of power and precision. Despite repeated attempts to establish communication, the ships remained silent. As the fleet prepared for potential conflict, Rachel worked tirelessly to rally support from Earth's allies. She reached out to friendly alien species, asking for intelligence or assistance. Some responded with offers of help, while others expressed concern about provoking the unknown ships. One ambassador, a wise elder named Kale, warned Rachel to proceed cautiously. "You do not know their nature," Kyle said during a private conversation. "They may come in peace, or they may bring destruction. Act too quickly, and you risk war. Wait too long, and you risk being unprepared." Rachel took his advice to heart, balancing caution with readiness. She knew that Earth couldn't afford to appear weak, but neither could it act recklessly. Every decision mattered, and the stakes were higher than ever. Meanwhile, Daniel worked around the clock to enhance Earth's defenses. He redesigned the energy shields, making them capable of withstanding even the most powerful attacks. He also developed a new type of missile, equipped with adaptive targeting systems that could adjust to enemy maneuvers mid-flight. Though exhausted, Daniel refused to rest until every ship in the fleet was fully upgraded. Emily pushed her squadron to its limits, running drills day and night. She knew that facing an unknown enemy required not just skill but adaptability. During training sessions, she emphasized teamwork and creativity, encouraging her pilots to think outside the box. "Out there," she told them, "you won't have time to second-guess yourself. Trust your instincts and trust each other." Finally, the moment of truth arrived. The mysterious ships entered Earth's solar system, stopping just beyond the orbit of Mars. For hours they hovered silently, their presence casting a shadow of uncertainty over the planet below. Then, without warning, they began moving closer. General Brooks ordered the fleet to intercept. Dozens of ships launched from Earth's orbital stations, forming a defensive line between the intruders and the planet. Emily led her squadron into position, her fighter trembling slightly as it accelerated toward the unknown vessels. Through her cockpit window, she could see the massive ships looming ahead, their surfaces shimmering like liquid metal. "Hold steady," Brooks commanded, over the comms. "Let's see what they do." For several agonizing minutes, nothing happened. The ships simply floated there unmoving. Then suddenly, a beam of light shot out from one of them, striking a nearby asteroid. The rock exploded into fragments, scattering debris across space. It wasn't an attack, but it was a demonstration of power. "They're testing us," Emily muttered under her breath. Brooks agreed. "Stand down, but stay alert. Let's try communicating again." Rachel stepped forward, taking control of the diplomatic efforts. Using a universal translator designed by Earth's scientists, she broadcast a message to the ships. "We are the people of Earth," she said calmly. "We seek understanding, not conflict. Identify yourselves and state your purpose." There was a long pause. Then finally a response came. A voice deep and resonant, speaking in a language no one recognized. The translator struggled to interpret, but fragments of meaning emerged. "Observers, evaluating, potential." Rachel frowned. "What does that mean? Are they here to study us?" Daniel shook his head. "Hard to say. But if they're observers, maybe they're not here to fight. Maybe they're deciding whether we're worth dealing with." Before anyone could respond, the ships began moving. Again. This time they didn't advance further. They turned and started retreating. Within moments they vanished into the depths of space, leaving Earth's fleet behind. Silence filled the command center as everyone processed what had just happened. Had they passed some kind of test? Or had the observers deemed Earth unworthy of attention? Rachel broke the silence first. "Whatever their reason for coming, we handled ourselves well. We showed strength without aggression, and we stood our ground. That's all we can ask for." Over the following weeks, life returned to normal, or as normal as it could be in a galaxy full of mysteries. Scientists analyzed the data collected during the encounter, searching for clues about the mysterious ships. Diplomats speculated about their origins and motives, while ordinary citizens debated endlessly on social media. Despite the unanswered questions, Earth emerged stronger from the experience. The fleet was better equipped, the population more united, and the resolve to protect their home fiercer than ever. People understood that the galaxy was vast and unpredictable, but they also knew that humanity had proven itself capable of facing the unknown. Emily returned to her duties, guiding her squadron with renewed determination. She often thought about the observers and wondered if they would return. If they did, she vowed to be ready. Daniel continued his work, pushing the boundaries of technology even further. He dreamed of creating tools that would allow humanity to explore deeper into space, forging connections with other civilizations and uncovering the secrets of the universe. And Rachel? She remained steadfast in her mission to lead Earth into a brighter future. She knew that challenges lay ahead, but she also believed in humanity's ability to overcome them. After all, they had already done the impossible once. There was no reason they couldn't do it again. In the end, the story of Earth's rise was still being written. Each day brought new opportunities, new dangers, and new dreams. And though the galaxy remained vast and mysterious, one thing was certain. Humanity had found its place among the stars, and it wasn't going anywhere. Far above Earth, the stars twinkled in the endless night, promising adventures yet to come. The galaxy had always thought of Earth as a quiet little planet, far away from the busy centers of advanced civilizations. To most aliens, humans were strange creatures who spent more time fighting among themselves than looking outward to the stars. But things were changing. Humanity had finally started exploring space, building ships, and making contact with other species. Still, No one expected Earth to do anything that would shake the entire galaxy. That changed when something terrible happened. Ethan Carter was not a soldier or a politician. He was just an ordinary man with an extraordinary job. A young astrophysicist working aboard the International Space Station, Ethan spent his days studying stars, planets, and anything else he could see through telescopes. His work fascinated him because it gave him a chance to learn about the universe beyond Earth. For years, Ethan dreamed of being part of humanity's journey into the cosmos, and now he was living that dream every day. On the morning it all began, Ethan was alone in the observation module of the space station. Outside the large windows, Earth hung in the blackness of space like a glowing marble, blue oceans, green continents, and swirling white clouds. It was beautiful, but Ethan barely noticed. He was focused on his instruments, analyzing data from a distant star system. The hum of machinery filled the room, broken only by the occasional crackle of static from his headset. Then, without warning, everything changed. A flash of light lit up the darkness outside the station. At first, Ethan thought it might be sunlight reflecting off some piece of debris, but then he saw it, a ship. Sleek and silver, it moved silently through space, completely unlike any human vessel Ethan had ever seen. Its surface shimmered faintly, as if it were made of liquid metal. There were no markings, no signs of weapons, nothing to indicate where it came from or what it wanted. It simply appeared out of nowhere. Ethan froze. His training told him to report the sighting immediately, so he reached for the comms panel. Before he could press the button, however, the ship did something unexpected. A beam of energy shot out from its underside, striking the space station. The impact shook the entire structure, throwing Ethan off balance. Alarms blared, red lights flashed, and the once calm interior turned chaotic. "What's happening?" Ethan shouted into his headset, trying to get through to mission control. Static was the only reply. The energy beam didn't destroy the station outright. Instead, it seemed focused on one specific area, the observation module where Ethan stood. The walls around him began to glow with a strange, pulsating light. Panic set in as Ethan realized he couldn't move. His body felt heavy, as though invisible hands were holding him in place. He tried to scream, but no sound came out. Seconds later, the light engulfed him entirely. When it faded, Ethan was gone. The space station remained intact, but there was no trace of the man who had been standing there moments earlier. All that was left was silence. News of Ethan's disappearance spread quickly. Back on Earth, people watched live footage of the event broadcast on news channels around the world. Scientists scrambled to understand what had happened, while governments debated how to respond. The attackers hadn't said a word. They hadn't even stayed long enough to explain their actions. Their ship vanished as suddenly as it had arrived, leaving humanity in shock. For days, people talked about nothing else. Social media exploded with theories ranging from alien invasions to secret government experiments. Some believed Ethan had been kidnapped, while others feared he was dead. Whatever the truth, one thing was clear: Earth wasn't safe anymore. Among those watching the coverage was Rachel Monroe, a senator from the United States known for her passionate speeches about justice and fairness. Sitting in her office late at night, she stared at the screen, her face pale with anger and disbelief. Rachel had always believed humanity could achieve great things if people worked together, but seeing how vulnerable they truly were made her feel uneasy. "They can't just take one of ours," she muttered under her breath, "not without consequences." Rachel knew this incident would change everything. Already, leaders from across the globe were calling emergency meetings to discuss what to do next. Normally, such gatherings devolved into arguments over resources and politics, but this time felt different. This wasn't about money or power. It was personal. Someone had hurt one of their own, and everyone felt it deeply. Meanwhile, ordinary citizens reacted in their own ways. In cities and small towns alike, people gathered in public squares to hold vigils for Ethan. They lit candles, sang songs, and shared stories of loved ones who had inspired them to reach for the stars. Even those who had never met Ethan felt connected to him. knowing that he represented humanity's hopes and dreams. But grief soon gave way to determination. People refused to let fear paralyze them. Instead, they demanded action. Protesters marched through the streets, carrying signs that read, "Protect our stars and we won't be silent." Others volunteered their skills, offering to help build defenses or join whatever effort was needed to keep Earth safe. One of these volunteers was Daniel Harper, a soft-spoken engineer from Texas. Daniel had spent years designing satellites and communication systems, but after hearing about Ethan's death, he decided to use his talents for something bigger. He packed up his tools and headed to a research facility in California, where scientists were working around the clock to develop new technologies. Daniel knew he couldn't bring Ethan back, but he hoped his work might prevent similar tragedies in the future. As the days passed, humanity's resolve grew stronger. Governments pooled their resources, sharing intelligence and technology in ways they never had before. Scientists pored over data from the attack, searching for clues about the mysterious ship and its origins. Military leaders planned strategies, preparing for the possibility of another assault. Despite their efforts, many doubted whether Earth could stand up to such a powerful enemy. After all, humanity was still relatively new to space exploration. Compared to older civilizations, they were inexperienced and poorly equipped. Even within Earth itself, tensions simmered between nations, each wanting to take the lead in responding to the threat. Yet somehow, amidst all the chaos, unity began to emerge. Rachel Monroe became a symbol of this newfound solidarity. Her speeches resonated with people from all walks of life, reminding them of what they shared rather than what divided them. She called for cooperation, urging leaders to put aside their differences and focus on protecting their planet. Slowly but surely, her words started to make a difference. By the end of the week, Earth had taken its first steps toward recovery. Plans were underway to strengthen its defenses, and volunteers poured in from every corner of the globe. Everyone wanted to contribute, whether by serving in the military, donating supplies, or simply spreading awareness. Though the pain of losing Ethan lingered, it was overshadowed by a sense of purpose. Little did anyone know this was just the beginning. Far beyond Earth's borders, other civilizations were watching closely. Some admired humanity's courage, while others dismissed it as foolishness. None of them could have predicted what Earth would do next, or how profoundly it would alter the course of galactic history. What had started as a single act of violence against one man had ignited a fire within billions. And as that fire burned brighter, it became clear that Earth was no longer content to sit quietly on the sidelines of the universe.